Winnie has been outside, and so she currently smells of outside dog. I love you, but it is pungent. The aroma, the current Winnie aroma. Would you like to say something to your adoring fans? Thank you. Cheese is here too, but she's going to assume the position that is where Cheese likes to sit. If you didn't know any better, you would think that Cheese didn't really like us. But Cheese is actually, Winnie is like right here, right now. She's laid herself down on my legs. In reality, as much as Winnie is, she's my buddy, she's my pal, we all love, yes, you are so affectionate. Cheese is the most attached to me. Cheese follows me from room to room and must keep eyes on me at all times. But she likes to pretend that she's independent. Cheese is the one that like wants to be with me at all times. Winnie wants to live inside my skin with me, but it's a whole nother thing. I know that's why you come here, honestly. We're not here to talk about books. You want me to explain the dynamics of my relationships with my dogs. We are actually here to talk about books. I've brought my fridge cigarette. Let's crack this bad boy. That was honestly a good one. Satisfying, crunchy moment. All right, let's hope the caffeine hits my bloodstream because COVID hit my house. Mr. Pizza, who is back there. That is why I'm pointing that way. He's not in heaven. He didn't die. But he honestly probably prayed for it a little bit, prayed for the death because we brought the COVID. And by we, I mean me. Someone gave me COVID. I brought it home. Basically, like I was dead and I've been microwaved. So like the inside of me still feels dead, but the outside of me has a temperature that can pass for properly cooked. Whereas he is currently in the throes of the COVID times. It's his first time ever having it. Like how early 2020 of him. Okay, that's again not why we're here, but I got the COVID. We were also dog sitting. We had 2 extra dogs here during the COVID times, which 4 dogs and a plague is just not a sufficient way to live your life. So once again, I am here to catch you up on the reading because I am way too far behind. This is a recent reads. We are here to talk about books because 1, I like talking about books, but 2, I like to do this when it's a little bit short, when it's not overwhelming, when it is just whelming, which is the incorrect usage of that word. But you know that. I know that. Let's get rolling. If you know nothing about me, you should know that my reading is all over the place. I enjoy multitudes of genres. I read a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I am all over. And sometimes it gets a little bit chaotic. But in this, I read 2 what I'm going to consider fantasy romances, 2 what I'm going to consider weird creepy books, 1 horror, and I read 2 contemporary romances. So there we go. And I had 2 5 stars in this grouping. Let's talk about it. The first book we're going to talk about is a book I've been talking about a lot recently. I talked about it in a vlog and I talked about it in a recent recommendation video I did. And do you see those? You can go watch them. They're still available. If you want to hear me talk about this book yet again, here we go. The Haar. I loved this book. Full stop. Period. I really enjoyed this. It is incredibly short and incredibly easy to get through. And if you are all interested, I highly recommend you pick it up. But this comes with some asterisks. This is a goopy, drippy, nasty horror. There is some horrific, nasty things that are happening, but this is also an incredibly heartwarming story. It is such an odd combination of ingredients that work so well. This is the story of Margaret, and she is an elderly woman living in a small village on this island in Scotland that is picturesque and ideal when a billionaire, an American billionaire, because of course it was an American billionaire, shows up and he starts buying up all the property because he has his sights set on this beautiful land. He is going to turn it into a golf course. He is buying up everyone's home, everyone's land, and the people that aren't willing to part with their homes, he's getting really nasty. He wants this entire village, town, island, whatever it is, all to himself. But Margaret doesn't want to leave because Margaret has lived the majority of her life here. Her entire love story with her husband was here on this island. She raised her child here on this island. This is Margaret's house. This is Margaret's home, and she is going to die here, damn it. And she doesn't want to leave. And so this billionaire is getting progressively more awful and sinister in his ways of trying to get Margaret to vacate her land. One day, Margaret is walking along the beach and she finds a drippy, goopy, nasty sea monster. A sea monster. And they become besties. this goes gross. It goes nasty. But there is this friendship between Margaret and this monster. Margaret is just, you love Margaret. You can't help but love Margaret, and you hate this billionaire and all of his cronies. This is incredibly short, incredibly gross, incredibly nasty. But honestly, 5 stars. Loved it. Absolutely loved the Haar. The next book we're going to talk about is For Whom the Bell Tolls. This was 1000% a book I picked up knowing zero. I have no idea where I saw it, if I had ever seen it before, but Kindle was like, hey girl, we got something you might like. And I said, sure, Kindle. You don't seem to do me wrong that often. So I picked it up and I had a fantastic time. This is the story of Lily, and she is recently deceased. And so she shows up in the afterlife and is trying to get her bearings. She basically goes through the process of being in the afterlife and walking around and seeing the multitudes of different afterlives available. Lily had a very tumultuous relationship with what she thought the afterlife would be with religion in the past. And so she finds herself kind of searching through the afterlife and finding herself in hell. Well, more like the gateway to hell, the administration before you proceed into the gates of hell. And she makes herself comfortable. She likes this place. She likes the demons that are in this area. And she ends up kind of forging her own role within the gates of hell. But this world is very interesting because it takes a lot of time to talk about the multitudes of different afterlives, dealing with present religions and even like past religions and what they deemed the afterlife would be like. All of those things and versions are available. Each person that reaches the afterlife, if they get the good thing, they end up in their own version of what they would deem the good place, right? So Lily has, through circumstances and working through her own hangups, ended up working at the gates of hell, and she's having a great time. She also encounters a demon named Belle, who, through different circumstances, these two strike up a friendship. This book, I did not realize, is based on, the author has some sort of TikTok following where they do some sort of skits involving characters that I believe are written into this story. I had no prior knowledge of that, but I really enjoyed the world that this author has created. There is just this really cozy feel to it, which sounds crazy because we are literally working in hell, but the characters that we are encountering, some of them are like big, epic, mythic people and gods and demons, but some of them are just ordinary, everyday people. There's incredibly sad things that we're dealing with because this is the afterlife and not everybody shows up here after living a full and lovely life. But also the story of these two characters, both Lily and our Belle character, how they become friends into something more. It felt cozy, even though it was taking place inside of this like epic world that has been created. There are high stakes, but yet everything feels incredibly cozy. I will say this is a long book. You spend a lot of time with these characters. I personally enjoyed these characters enough that I didn't mind sitting in all of these kind of everyday situations with them as we build to something more epic that is taking place. It was something I enjoyed, but I could see people being a little bit, if you don't enjoy these characters, you're not going to love spending all this time with them. That being said, I loved these characters. I loved side characters. I love the world that was built. I like the rules that were in place for this afterlife, for the afterlife that our character is in, for the afterlife that other characters are in. I really, really stinking enjoyed this. And I was so incredibly surprised because I just went into it absolutely blind. Some of the side characters, I believe, are going to be the characters that are set up going into the next books within this series. So similar to like a lot of romance series, these books are going to be interconnected in that some characters will show up again, but each book is going to be one full romance following new characters, is my understanding. There's a character that is introduced. He is the best friend of our male main demon character, and I need his romance like now, like right now. I am so interested in Gary the Demon. That is For Whom the Bell Tolls. If any of that sounds interesting to you, I highly recommend you pick this up. I went back because I feel like I read this right after it came out, again, not knowing that I was picking this author's first book in this series up, and have looked. It has got an incredibly high rating on Goodreads, but I think a lot of people that are seeking it out are the people that are excited to read this, have either watched this author's TikToks or know some of this backstory and are willing to sit here in this relationship as it develops with these characters for a long time and spend a lot of time in this world that they already enjoy. I can't pet you 24 hours a day as much as I would like to. I need to just grow like another arm that just is for the purpose of Winnie. Winnie would like that. She literally has her hand. It's not a hand. Dogs don't have hands. Winnie has her paw right here. And if I stop petting her, she presses it into me. You're not going to do it because you're on camera now. Winnie has been pressing her paw into me. There it is. She's like, pardon, what are you doing? Give me some pets. Okay. The next book I picked up after that is another one that I read in that previous reading vlog, and that was Sour Cherry. This is a book that was, I'm pretty sure, a cover buy. Honestly, it's just the theme of whatever this vlog is, because I do not know how or where I heard about a lot of these books, and yet had a great time with a lot of the books I found. I ended up giving this 3 stars, but I actually think it's definitely worth your time if it sounds interesting. This is a Bluebeard retelling. Let's back up a little bit. This is a story that is given to you through a narrator who is telling a fairy tale to another character, and you are that character for the majority of this book. Sections of this book where a black bar will appear around the page, and that is a visual representation of the character speaking directly to you. There are like stage instructions on this page, as well as the character telling you about this story they're going to tell you, talking about these ghosts that are in the room with you that it is pretty apparent that you cannot see, but the narrator can. And then we jump into the actual story, which is a fairy tale about this Bluebeard, I keep wanting to say Blackbeard, but Blackbeard is real. Bluebeard is not. Bluebeard character, from the time he is born, we have a character named Agnes show up to be the wet nurse for a wealthy family's newborn son. When the mother refuses to care for the child, Agnes has recently lost a child, and so she becomes very emotionally attached to this child very, very quickly. She spends a lot of time with just this child, and for that reason, not only does she form a bond, but she also willfully ignores a lot of the red flags that this child exhibits from a very young age. We then have point of view shifts throughout this story to different characters surrounding this Bluebeard type character. He is a representation of this toxic male character. And so we get different points of view, whether that is the Agnes character in the beginning is a maternal figure. We then get points of view from characters that are in romantic relationships with this male character, or are the child of this toxic male character. Different people surrounding this toxic, malignant male who brings a plague with him wherever he goes. He literally starts destroying the places he goes. A lot of these characters surrounding our Bluebeard type character are in situations where they are unable or are willfully ignoring a lot of the red flags, but there is a lot of commentary in this story, and one of the main things that I believe the author wants you to take away, because it is repeated constantly by the ghosts in our narrator's room: if you leave, you die. If you die, you stay. There's a lot of complicated reasons these characters can't just leave. And there are moments that sometimes you can realize that was the point in time that there was no turning back. It was their leave then or be stuck forever type moment. And a lot of them still couldn't leave. It is the age-old question: if he was that horrible, why did you stay? Well, because leaving is a lot more complicated than you think. This was very fever dreamy, the majority of the story being a fairy tale. The last portion of this book really saved it for me, because the veil starts peeling back on our narrator situation and why we are being told this fairy tale. I think this was something that if you enjoy that fairy tale fever dream type story, you'll like this. It is well done, but it can be a little hard to follow sometimes because of our point of view shifts or because it does have a dreamlike quality to it. The next book I picked up after that was Under One Roof. I wanted something quick and maybe perhaps spicy. I enjoy Ali Hazelwood books, and so I had never picked up these novellas. I know these were published after The Love Hypothesis just crashed the bestseller list. Under One Roof is part of a collection. I think it's 3 novellas. It is 3 friends. They are all women in STEM, and we follow each one of their romantic relationships in these short stories. Under One Roof has us following Mara, and she is willed a home by her professor, who she was her, not only her professor, but her mentor, someone that was very important in her life, who has passed away. When Mara shows up at this house, there is someone already living there, and his name is Liam, and these two actually both co-own this house together, so they have to become reluctant roommates. Mara is not only a scientist, but she's very involved in environmental conservation, and her roommate is Liam, and he's a lawyer for a big, nasty oil corporation. So tension there. They're living under one roof, so forced proximity, opposites attract, whatever tropes you want to throw at it. It's short, it's sweet. It was fine. I think the spicy scenes in this were a little confusing, which is another thing that I will say about The Love Hypothesis. Sometimes there's things that are put in the spicy scenes and you go, I'm sorry. Let's rewind the tape and try that again. There was a few moments in this where I was like, you did what with your what? But it's not in a like Olympic sexy over the top spiciness. It's in a like, how does he fit her whole in his mouth? Like that doesn't, how big is his mouth? How big are her tits? If you read The Love Hypothesis, you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, I still enjoyed this just fine. I'm sure I will pick up the rest of the novellas in this situation. I like Ali Hazelwood books. This is definitely an earlier work. She gets the hang of the spicy stuff later on. I enjoyed it, okay? I enjoy Ali Hazelwood books. The next book I picked up after that was The Bog Wife. And this is one of those like weird books that I didn't know what I was in for, but I had a really good time. This is a Appalachian Gothic tale taking place in West Virginia, following a really reclusive, somewhat wealthy family who has made some sort of deal with the powers of the bog. They have basically struck up a deal through generations that the oldest male member of the family will receive his wife from the bog. So when a patriarch dies, they must put his body into the bog, and then a bog wife crawls out and marries the oldest son. Sure. Swamp Wife. Love it. This book gave me Grey Gardens, but make it darker vibes. I know why, but like that's all that kept playing in my head of these formerly wealthy families that lives in this giant crumbling house that used to be the pinnacle of wealth, this beautiful house that would have just been the jewel of this family. And yet now these reluctant, like very reclusive family members have secluded themselves there as the walls crumble as like a raccoon crawls. There's a possum in this, which made me think of the raccoon in Grey Garden. Dilapidated. The family has kind of had to move into smaller and smaller areas of the house because this was the only livable rooms. They live on this giant bog all by themselves. And they have this family history, this tradition that keeps them kind of pinned in place. One of the really interesting things that works really well in this story is you have a pivoting point of view to the different current members of the family. The force, is it 4? 1, 2, 5. The 5 siblings that currently live, this most recent generation that is going to have to submit their father's dead body to the bog so that the oldest brother can receive his bog wife. How they all have different views and ways of dealing what's going on. One of the siblings had moved away and started a new life and then has returned to this home. How easy it is to fall into this groupthink, these traditions, these things that they're all comfortable with. You are constantly going back and forth with, is this a real thing? Or like, is there really a woman that's going to crawl out of the bog? Is there magic bog ladies popping up? Or is this something that has been made up to keep them compliant? Like, you go back and forth between that. And that's kind of the real mystery of the book. I will not spoil it for you, but I found this incredibly interesting. If you want Grey Gardens, but make it darker, darker and sadder and put it in West Virginia. Like, that is this book. And I think if you like that Southern Gothic, creepy, crumbling home, but some sort of like deal with an entity, that any of that, does that sound fun? Then you should read this, because I thought it was incredibly well done, even though I was totally, what is this wild ride that I am on? Stuck in the backwoods with this weird family. The next book I picked up after that was Promise Me Sunshine. I picked this up because I started seeing this everywhere as everyone's newest favorite romance of the summer. I picked it up and I gave this 5 stars. I will warn you before going into this. This deals with some heavy topics and I cried. But like, I cry. Like, I am a crier. I cry all the time. I cried earlier today because I watched a video about a puppy that met a baby, and it was just puppies and babies. If you do not cry nearly as easy as I do, you might not cry, although I feel like this is going to be a hard one not to cry. This is the story of Lenny, and she is a young woman. In the opening of this story, she takes a job as a short-term nanny for a young girl. I believe her name is Ansley. And she is only really emotionally able to take these short-term nannying jobs right now, even though she is a phenomenal nanny and a phenomenal person, because she's gone through a really hard time in her life. Her platonic soulmate, her best friend, the person that was most important in her life, has recently passed away from cancer. And so she is reeling. She is just basically surviving. She is not thriving. And so when she takes on this job, she meets Miles, who is Ansley's uncle, and he sees in Lenny pretty quickly the signs of someone that is going through something really hard. Even though she puts on a really brave front, even though she's still fun and bubbly and good at her job, she's not doing great mentally. Miles then takes it upon himself to try and help Lenny complete a list that was left behind after her best friend's passing of ways to start living again, different things she needs to do to get back into life after this incredible loss. Miles becomes Lenny's person. He's not doing it because he's getting anything out of it. He's doing it because he sees this person needs someone to be there for them right now. And it is so stinking good. I cried. Did I mention I cried? I loved this. Like, I loved Lenny and Miles. I loved all of the characters we meet along the way, the friendships we make. There was some really hard conversations. These people have been through some really sad things in their life, but yet I just was so happy at the end of this book that it was all worth it. I really loved this story. And if you're okay with reading a romance that has a lot of grief in it, I think all of the happy moments in this, the silly moments, because Lenny is really, really funny and Miles is a good straight man to her funny most of the time. It was good. It was great. I loved it. 5 stars. And the last book we're going to talk about is The Enchanted Greenhouse. This is the most recent cozy fantasy romance from this author who last year gave us The Shellshop. This, I feel like, was absolutely everywhere when it first came out because it was touted as cozy fantasy romance. And even though I enjoyed this, I feel like it should not be touted as cozy fantasy romance. It should be said this is a cozy fantasy that has a romance happening, because there's a big difference, at least to me. I don't want you going in thinking this is the spiciest of the spicy books. These are not super spicy. These instead are super cozy and sweet, and they just happen to be romancy as well. This book, which is upside down, this book is a continuation of stories into this world. So this is another character that was alluded to in the first book, but you never properly met her because at the time of the first book, she'd been turned into a statue. This is the story of Turla, and she at one point worked in a giant library in the main city in this fantasy magical world. But Turla, being the social creature that she was very, very lonely. Her job was very solitary, and so one day she did something she wasn't allowed to do, and she created a friend. She used magic to turn a spider plant into a sentient friend. His name is Kaz, and you meet him in the first book. Well, Turla is put on trial and convicted of doing magic when she wasn't allowed to, and so she is turned into a statue. Years later, Turla is unturned into a statue, which I don't know if that's the correct way to put it, but that's how I'm putting it. She finds herself on a snowy, secluded island with a giant beautiful greenhouse on it. She's like, well, first of all, how long have I been a statue? And second of all, how did I get here? She then meets Yarrow, who is the last working member of the greenhouse, and maybe we make sentient plant friends along the way. Also kittens. with wings. This is just so cozy and lovely and sweet. We have plants singing songs, kittens flying around. We make friends. We overcome cozy fantasy type obstacles in order to save a big, beautiful, enchanted greenhouse in a magical world. This is sweet and lovely and isn't going to hurt your feelings. And if you're looking for a book that feels like a hug full of plants, which I don't know how a hug full of plants would work, but like maybe you're into that. I enjoyed this. I thought it was very sweet. If you enjoyed this Shellshop, you're definitely going to enjoy this one. I actually liked the romance a little bit better in this one. I thought it was done a little bit better, but yet again, like not a spicy romance. Something that you definitely could recommend to your grandma and not feel weird about what she's going to read. Although honestly, my grandma was really into some spicy bodice rippers. So like my grandma probably be like, where's the sex? I enjoyed it. I think you probably will too. But that, kids, is where we are going to end this recent reads because I, having been recently sick, now just want to go do a lay down. Me and the dogs. This one. What is this? That's a butt. Me and the dogs just want to go do a lay down. But if you had fun hanging out with me and the dogs, please subscribe. I hope you're reading good books out there, wherever you are, and I'd love to hear about them. And I'll see you next time.